Alright guys, welcome back to the Modded Projects Garage. That is a wrap on the C5 Speed Engineering headers and X-pipe install. Super easy to do. The only thing I really had to do up top was take the starter wires off, and then there's a ground from the block. You just have to take that off. And the headers came in right from the bottom. I did leave my air tube over here, and then the other side was the same deal. I had to take this ground strap off down in here, and you'll see it in the video. And then didn't have to take the alternator off. Header came up from the top, and like I said in the video, you're gonna see. So that is it, guys. It is a done deal. So if you want to watch the install, go ahead and stick around and watch it. Today we're working on the C5 Vet. We're going to be putting some headers and an X-pipe in. I got the headers and the X-pipe from Speed Engineering. I just got them this last weekend. I'm super pumped to get them in. I'm hoping it's going to make my Vet a little bit louder. So backstory here, I put an axle back on from Billy Boat. It was actually the Billy Boat Fusion. It's the exhaust where you can switch between the loud and the quiet. It's kind of like the NPP on the C6. That's what that is, and it really wasn't very loud. I'm hoping to get rid of the cats, and hopefully that makes a little bit of a difference, and obviously the headers, but it already does have an X-pipe, but I think I'm going to use the Speed Engineering, and I'll show you guys along the way here in the video on why I'm probably going to be doing that. But anyways, yep, C5 headers going in, so let's get right into it. All right, first up, guys, removing these covers here, so I'm going to get those gone, but starting over on this side, I'm just going to pull all the spark plug wires out, and I don't have any like liquid wrench or anything to put on the manifold bolts, so I'm just going to be really careful, and hopefully they come out easy, and pray that none break on the way out. All right, guys, I just wanted to point out that I'm going to be taking off the A.I.R system, which is kind of like the EGR. I got all my plug wires out, but I'm going to be moving this out of the way. That way I have access to the manifold bolts here. I'm going to be going over what I'm going to be doing with this later on in the video, so stay tuned for that. All right, guys, I got the passenger side manifold off. I just had to unhook this air tube here off of the stock manifold. And then I just went ahead and pulled off all the plug wires, and then got all the manifold bolts out. And then I'll show you what I did underneath here. Alright, so going under the car here, you're going to have your manifold bolts up to your exhaust. There's going to be 3 bolts that are going to hold this on. You're just going to go ahead and take all 3 of those off. And then once you have that off, you're going to want to unplug your O2 sensor. It's going to be right here. It's actually going to be... Okay, this is a pain in the ass here. Okay. So here's where your manifold would go. You're unbolting that. And then there's a plug-in right here. And then there's actually another one just right that's on the frame. I just popped that off. And then I unplugged my O2 sensor. And then I just pulled the whole manifold out with the O2 sensor in it. So I'm going to take that off, and then I'll put it in the new header. I'm working on the driver's side here. I was having issues with that back bolt holding the manifold on here. I would say take the coil packs off. I just did it right now, and now I have so much more room to get to that. So go ahead and save yourself some frustration and headache, and just take the coil packs off. It's literally 5 bolts, and then you just unplug it. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and do it to the passenger side as well. Just when I'm putting the headers back in, I have room to screw all the bolts in, and I'm not going to be fighting anything. So just a heads up, take that off on the driver's side for sure. So much easier. Underneath the car, this is the back end over here. I just unbolted my axle back on both sides here, and now, like I said, I have already had an X-pipe in here apparently from the previous owner, the Bassani X-pipe, but I'll be taking these 2 bolts out here, loosening this up, and then I'm just going to take these O2 sensors off. There's one on each side, one over here and one over on this side. And then I'm taking these 2 bolts off, and then this X pipe should come out. So that's what I'm working on right now. I tried pulling the driver's side manifold up, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get it to fit. So I'm going to see if I can drop it from the bottom. If not, I'm going to have to take my alternator off, but I'm going to see if I can get around that without taking that off. Alright guys, still underneath the car here. Sorry for the bad angles here. My car really isn't very high up in the air right now, but I'm going to show you guys how to take out the rear O2 wires. So I took the one side out, and so here's the back of the engine right here. There's the oil filter. And here's a clip that holds the wire going to the rear O2. All you have to do to get this out is just go find all these clips and literally just pop them off. They'll literally just slide right off that, and it's going to make your wire loose. And then up towards where you unplugged your O2 for your manifold, the other O2 plug-in is going to be right there. Just make sure it's popped away from the frame or the body, and it'll just come right out. I was able to get the manifold out without taking out the alternator or really anything else. So it was a little bit of a pain, but it didn't really take too long. Just make sure you don't hit that ground wire that's down here. Make sure you don't rip that out. And then the biggest thing was this A.I.R system. This pipe was really in the way, so it is doable, just so you guys know, so you don't have to take the alternator off. Alright guys, I'm going to be weighing this. I'm going to see if there's a big weight difference. I feel like there's going to be a pretty decent amount of weight difference because all this stuff feels pretty heavy. So I'm going to go ahead and throw all this stuff on a scale, and then I'm going to weigh all the Speed Engineering stuff and see what kind of weight difference we're going to have. Here we go. We got the box and all, and it's 42.6 pounds. So this has all the clamps, even the O2 extensions. So like every little piece that you get with Speed Engineering, including the box, plastic, blah, 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 is 42.6 pounds. So now I'm going to go ahead and weigh what I just took off and see if there's any difference. Wow, 67.8. That is about a 20-pound difference, guys, between the Speed Engineering and the factory. So that's actually quite a bit of a difference. That's pretty sweet. 20 pounds gone. That is a pretty straightforward removal of your manifold and your X-pipe. I'm pretty sure you guys can figure it out. Literally you're just unbolting everything. But the main thing, I just wanted to point out that you don't need to remove your alternator to get the manifold out. Hopefully I don't have to remove the alternator to get the headers in. Shout out to Bad Luck Garage. I know he got his in from the bottom on both sides, and he said they went in perfect, so I'm praying that that's how mine's gonna go. But and another point I wanted to say is just take the coil packs off. They're 5 bolts. That bolt back there was a pain with the coil packs on, but once they were off, it was so much easier. I wish I would have just did it right off the get, but I'm gonna do that with that side. Just when I'm putting everything in, I'm just gonna have more room. So yeah, that was the removal, guys. Pretty straightforward. Like I said, I don't have the factory H pipe. I have an X pipe, and I know you have to cut off the back portion of the H pipe, but now obviously mine is the X pipe, and I don't know if I'm gonna have enough back here because I know the H pipe is further up and you have more room to cut off. So I'm gonna see if I have enough slack in the Speed Engineering where I can just back out the slip joint a little bit and just see if I can make up for that difference. But so we're gonna roll with that and see what I can do. I'm gonna take you in here and show you kind of what I got going on. So that metal tube right there, you can see there's the black hose on the end of it. There's one of those black clamps. I'm gonna cut that off and I'm gonna pull this tube out. Guys, I'm just using the tin snips here. If you guys don't have a tin snips, I don't know how many times I've used it in automotive related stuff, but They are so nice for cutting things. They've came in handy so many times. So if you guys don't own a set of these, go ahead and get them. I'm just ready to cut it right now, and there she went. This piece is ready to come out. Gone. That's gonna save up a lot of room on down there putting that header in. All right, guys, I will be able to get it through the bottom. I'm gonna show you the issue that I had though. So this ground, let me get this light on here. That ground wire that's looped, it's right here. This one. It's hard to do with the light, but you can see it's tangled. So I'm unscrewing it right there. And I'm just gonna put it through the header. So I'm gonna just take it off quick, get the header up, and then I'm gonna screw that back in. And then this metal hose right here, I'm trying to set this light up so you guys can still see stuff here. Alright, there we go. So, right here, this guy, it's clipped in like right back here. Just push it down and it'll pop out of that clip, and then you can move it over. That way you can get your header up. So you just push it down and then you can scoot it along the frame here, and then your header will come right up. Now before I pull this header up and actually put the gasket and bolt it on and everything, I'm going to put my spark plugs in first because I'm going to have enough room to bring it over anyways. So I'm just going to do that. That way I don't have to fight going around the headers. So getting all my plug wires in, and don't forget to use some anti-seize. So throw some of that on and screw them in. Alright guys, I got the driver's side header on. I got everything bolted in. I put anti-seize on everything. Yeah, this side should be pretty much done. It's looking good, guys. I got the driver's side all done. Everything's buttoned up. Everything's moved out of the way. I got my O2 sensor in. You literally just take it out of your old manifold and screw it into your header here. The only thing I had to do was this ground wire right here. I had to run through that those two pipes there, and I actually just zip tied it to the plug wire there. That way it wouldn't sag and end up sitting on the header. So I just had to zip tie that up. Can't even really see it, so I mean it looks good to me. And that is the driver's side. Alright guys, I just want to say I've done a horrible job recording all this stuff. I haven't really had a good spot to place it. I wish I had somebody to film it for me, but anyways, I got the passenger side up. It's bolted in. The only thing that I really had to do was take the ground off the block on this side. There's a ground wire, you'll see it. And then I had to remove the starter wires, and then I was able to pull the header up. And then I just reconnected all that stuff. And then down here, your AC line, this tube right here was actually touching it. So I just took a pry bar and I just bent my AC line over. Just be careful when you're doing that. It bends pretty easy. Just make sure you don't kink it or puncture it or anything. But I was able to move it over, and now I got plenty of room. And it's already got like a heat shield on it, and it's no longer touching, so I got plenty of room there. I still have to figure out where I want to run my O2 sensor lines, and then I did, for the starter wires, I did just zip tie them together just to keep them up and off of the header. They weren't touching, but they were pretty close, so I just zip tied them up just to make sure there was more clearance there. But everything's looking good down there now, other than the O2 line, or the O2 wires, but I haven't touched them yet. I don't have my O2 sensor plugged in or anything, so that is coming soon. And right now what I'm working on is my dipstick tube. So I should have recorded this yesterday, but I actually just straightened out this piece right here. Let me set this down somewhere. So I actually just put this in a vise, and then I had it like that, and I just straightened everything out, and then I cut it like this. So it used to be wrapped around you can see where the bend was, but it was wrapped like around this way, and then I just straightened everything out, so it's like this now. I'm still gonna hammer it a little bit so it's a little more flat, but when it's in here, I'm not gonna put it in really, but unless I luck out. But anyways, I'm gonna have it sitting like this, and I just cut out a piece of some metal, and I'm just gonna drill a hole through this, put a bolt in, and then drill another hole for the bottom piece, and the other header bolt that goes right next to the one that I'm touching here with the dipstick. There's one that goes right here. I'm just gonna bolt it in, and that's how it's gonna sit. And the reason I'm doing this is because mine is a 2000, so they say you need the 01 to 04 dipstick, and I looked online and they want like $100 for a dipstick and tube, and I'm just gonna spend 30 minutes making something and save myself $100. So if you guys are looking into doing headers or whatever and you don't have a 01 to 04 vet, maybe consider doing this. It's really not that hard. This is the piece of metal that I'm going to be using that I cut out. I'm just going to give it like a little bit of a bend. You'll see, I'll film it here after I get it done. And I'll drill holes in it, paint it, and bolt everything back in. Should be good to go. Alright guys, everything's a disaster in here, but this was the one I made yesterday, last night. I tried using the piece that I cut off, but it wasn't long enough. So I'm just going to kind of recreate what I did here and just make it a little bit longer. So that's why I cut out this piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it some bending and see what I can do here. So we got something like that now. So I'm going to go ahead and mock this up and see if this is going to work. And if it does, I'm going to just round the edges on my grinder and drill some holes, paint it up, and throw it on the car. Alright guys, so this is what I'm talking about. So I'll have this bolted in like right there on that flange. And then this is just going to sit just like this. And then that's kind of what I'm working with here. I'm going to straighten out the dipstick one a little bit because you can see it's kind of crooked and wavy. And then I'm just going to drill some holes, and it's going to be a wrap. Alright guys, so this is what we got. Drilled the holes, everything's ready to rock. I haven't test fitted it, assuming it's probably going to work, but I guess I'll find out. And I'm just going to clean up these edges, just round everything off on the bench grinder, and get to it. Alright guys, so this is the finished product here. It's not the prettiest looking thing, but it's gonna work. So I'm gonna get this thing bolted up and start moving on to the bottom half, getting the X pipe and everything situated, and then be welding that in here. But that is the dipstick from a 2000 to work with the headers. So if you guys don't want to spend $100, just do this cheap little thing here, or you know, whatever you can think of, but this was the easiest thing that I could think of to make it work, so it's gonna do for me. Finished product here with the dipstick. I did bend it back away from the engine a little bit just because it was pretty close to the header, but now I got some room, so I'm not too worried about it. And it doesn't look horrible. I could use a smaller bolt up here, or even like weld it, but I don't have my welder right now, so that's gonna do for now. And I really don't think it's gonna be that noticeable once I get the coils on and the spark plug wire. I think it's gonna cover most of that. So that is it for the dipstick. Everything bolted back up. I'm really happy with how this dipstick turned out. Like I said, I was figuring that coil would cover it, or that spark plug wire, and it pretty much covers that whole bracket. I mean, it's really not that noticeable, and saved myself $100, so that's pretty sweet. Eventually, when I get an LS6 intake, I'm going to be taking the rest of this air system off, but for right now, it's just going to dangle there. But yeah, everything else on this is ready to rock. I just got to put that cover on, and top side is done. Right, guys, so this is what I'm working with here. So I have to cut this piece off, and I don't think it's going to be long enough, because usually the X pipe or the H pipe, I think, comes to somewhere around here on the stock H pipe, where mine already has an X pipe in it. So I'm going to cut it off here, and I'm going to see if I have enough room to wiggle with on the slip joints. So I'm going to cut it off, and we're just going to see how everything lines up. Alright guys, so I got everything situated to where everything is going to be straight, so I need to weld all this up now. So this is what I got going on. So I had to cut this part off the old X pipe, and I actually got that bracket, like where these springs are to hold the exhaust. I actually got that to line up. So that is good, because I was thinking I might have to like build a bracket off of that to make them, because I definitely wanted to have those bolted on there again just to give the exhaust some more support. So I got those to fit with no modification, which is good. And everything else is bolted up. I did start the car, and it is exhaust leak crazy. Every joint's leaking. Alright, so one thing that we're fighting here is, I don't know how much you can tell, but this side is actually sitting up a lot higher than what this side is. It's just kind of a loose fit for now, but we'll see what happens as we snug it up. Don't use my snap-on, those are only for show. Oh, okay. Must be for show, it doesn't fit. See, I told you. So all we did is we were having a lot of issues with the exhaust pipe resting up against this metal heat shield for the fuel tank. It had nothing to do with my welding. Nothing to do with the welding whatsoever. We got his muffler away from his... Here, show him down there. So this is a problem I had, and I think it was mainly, well, I know it's mainly due to how I welded this back piece up. Just the angle of it, and it did drop a little bit when I was welding. And I didn't realize it until I put it back in, but the rear sway bar there, and then you can show them there. See here the gap in the sway bar. When he initially welded it, it was resting on top of this sway bar. And now we were able to rotate it and get it up out of the way of that sway bar. Got about a 1/4 inch of clearance here. On this side you see we've got about 1 inch of clearance. And I don't think, even if I'm doing that, is it moving? Is it hitting it? It is not hitting it. Okay. And realistically, that shouldn't As long as it's not touching it, even when I'm moving this, it should never touch it because nothing else should move on there. So
biggest thing we're trying to avoid here is keeping it from clanking as he's driving down the road.
And yeah, I definitely don't want it sitting on a sway bar, but yeah. I think we're good everywhere else.
So as we adjusted it to keep it up off of the sway bar, one issue that we ran into is it did pull the exhaust over this way. It ended up pulling it over this way too much and was resting up against this aluminum heat shield.
And we just, yeah, bent that in with some pry bars. And there's like an inch of room between this and your gas tank. And we still have some gap in here, which is good. But yeah, I didn't want it sitting on this. First off, to heat this up real hot. And second off, it would just rattle like crazy. I already know it would. If it was sitting on that, you'd be hearing clanking. And now, even if I go like this, we're not touching it. And it should never move like that, I would hope. But, so that is done. I think I might give us just a little bit more right in there. And then just by looking at everything else, I think we're good.
So you see where he attached the band clamps up there. He rotated them off to the side, keep them up out of the way. That way he doesn't have any clearance issues with rubbing on the road.
And it still does sit down a little bit, but I don't think that's going to be a huge issue. And then I didn't want to weld this to the header. And I tried using these clamps, and it would hang down so much. So I just double band clamped the clamps that came with my kit. And I know they're not the best clamps, but hopefully by just doubling them up, if that even makes sense, I have no idea, but I did it. So hopefully that doesn't leak at all. We'll find out when we start it up. I still got to tighten this little dummy plug for an O2 sensor yet, but yeah, that's what we got going on so far. I think it's gonna come out all right. The last step would be lining up the exhaust tips. Just clamps, so I should be able to move them up and down however we need to. All right, guys, the headers are in the C5. We got everything buttoned up last night. I just want to say thank you guys for watching the video. If you guys have a 97 to 2000, just check out that Dipstick mod that I did to make that work. That saved a lot of money. Yeah, let's go ahead and hear this thing start up. And if you guys like the video, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you guys want to see more C5 content.